So let's talk about the Psalms. The Psalms are one of the most important parts of the Bible, one of the most well read and researched, and um, uh, one of the parts of the Bible that we connect with the most. I'm going to really encourage you to read the Psalms, pray the Psalms, and make them a part of your repertoire of Bible reading after we finish reading the Bible this year. Or continue them while we're still reading the Bible this year. But there are 150 songs, poems, hymns, prayers, and they sort of span the breadth of human experience. And they really are in that sort of prayerful tone. And so you can quite literally pray the Psalms. Um, there's 150 of them. And so if you use one a day, you can do it twice in a year. You can go through the Psalms twice in a year and still have 65 days left. And I think that would really strengthen your spiritual life if you did that. Um, but anyway, these are worshipful. It's what they're meant to be. They're not so much academic. They're not stories. They're worshipful. And so, in fact, even if you look in the back of our United Methodist hymnal, you see the Psalms set to many of the Psalms set to music, um, set to kind of this call and response prayer kind of thing. And a lot of churches use the Psalms in that form um, for their worship life. And they are the core of Israel, of the Jewish worship life. So, for instance, Jesus found himself using the Psalms. Mary, though she was almost certainly illiterate, would have taught Jesus from a very young age to memorize the Psalms. That's how much of a core part the Psalms are in Jewish life. The Psalms are like music, so you might think about how music makes you feel things, right? Um, music makes you good music. You connect with it in whatever's going on in your own life, even if your story is different than the writer of the song's story, right? That's a little bit kind of like what the Psalms do. You can feel them. Athanasius, ancient um, father of the church, said most scriptures speak to us, the Psalms speak for us. Um, another way of saying it, the Torah, the first five books of the Bible, when God comes and gives the law to Moses, right? That's God speaking to Israel, God speaking to the Jewish people. The Psalms are Israel speaking to God. It's prayer, it's praise, it's singing. So most often, King David, is attributed with writing the Psalms. So just some thoughts on that. It, well, I want us to expand our vision of what it means for these to be attributed to David. Most of the time, in our sort of black and white scientific culture, we want to say if something is attributed to someone, it means they took their pen and they wrote it, right? Um, but in the ancient world, they would have had a far more expansive view of what attributing something to someone meant. Um, there's certainly the Psalms are certainly used in connection with the sort of royal house of David, right? They're meant to they attribute them to David. If David didn't, let's say David didn't write any of them. I don't think that's true, but let's say he didn't write any of them. Still, the authors want to connect the Psalms to David to kind of say like, okay, this is one of the this is our sort of the greatest king that we have. We view him as the greatest king, right? And so we want to attribute them to him. Therefore, we can say these are ours, right? This is who we are as a Jewish people. It's in the certainly in the tradition of David. Similarly to the point I just made, um, there is a concept that we see more of in the New Testament, actually, but we see it throughout the Old Testament as well. Like uh, Moses, the Torah being attributed to Moses. We see in some of Paul's letters in the New Testament. Um, this concept. The fancy Greek word is pseudepigraphy. It's where an author takes on someone else's name in order to give what they're writing some credit, some credibility, I should say. And that to us sounds a little slimy, but in the ancient world, that's actually like a way to that was actually a really common thing to do, and a way to give someone else some heft. So uh, it's possible that some of the Psalms weren't actually written by David himself, but were attributed to David to say like this is me trying to continue David's legacy by writing this psalm, right? But I think the bigger point in terms of Davidic authorship of the Psalms is that this whole thing attributing this to David, whether he physically wrote 150 of them, some of them or none of them or whatever, it points to this bigger, I'll call it a meta narrative. This points to this bigger picture idea, um, a bigger picture question. When we look at these Psalms, and we'll talk about the types of Psalms in a minute. When we look at these Psalms, which sort of span the breadth of human experience and human emotion, who is the type of person who would pray these Psalms? You look at David; he's so well known in the ancient world and in the Jewish world for his ups and his downs. We've read about those up to this point in the historical books, and yet he's not somebody who's perfect by any means. He tries to serve God, and yet he makes some really terrible decisions at other times. And yet he is the type of person who would pray these psalms. And so, as someone to whom the Jewish people would look up, they look up to David, um, and see him for all his good and his bad, for his achievements and his flaws. They and we can look inside ourselves and say, "Oh, I have achievements. I have flaws. I am the kind of person who can pray the Psalms." Therefore, so that's how it becomes um, such an important part to just to weave in and out of the worship life of Israel. So finally, just some types of psalms. You can further subdivide these in however many types you want, but big picture, there's four-ish types of psalms. There's lament, which are actually really common in the psalms. Laments are not types of prayers that we often pray anymore today, and we've kind of missed that, both individual and communal. So the formula of a lament sort of goes like this: there's this cry and complaint to God. Something's not going my way. God, where the heck are you? There's a petition for deliverance. There's a statement of confidence and a vow of praise. It's sort of this prayer on the way to praise kind of thing. Um, an acknowledgement that things aren't what they ought to be. Things aren't what we think they should be. There's even some anger. Uh, Psalm 22, Jesus prays it on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Right? Um, and that almost sounds a little bit like, oh, well, you can't say that to God, right? Why have you forsaken me? But I mean, Jesus himself prays it. It's in the Psalms, and that's a part of the prayer life. So lament is big there. I will say all of the laments resolve themselves. God, where the heck are you? But it gets eventually to, but I believe that God is with me, or something like that. Except for one, Psalm 88 is a lament which does not resolve itself. I'll let you chew on that. There's hymns, there's songs of thanksgiving, of deliverance, and psalms that are more focused on wisdom. All sorts of good stuff in the psalms, and I hope that as we read them together, that they will not just be kind of this academic exercise of reading, but that they will deepen your faith and help you connect